Rav Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, tells us an amazing story about him getting invitation from the late Mayor Ed Koch of New York City. While Rabbi Lau visited Mayor Koch, he greeted him at the city hall saying, "Rabbi, you are not the only survivor of the Holocaust, I'm also a survivor." Well, Rabbi Lau looked at him and said, "What do you mean by that? I knew that you were born in the Bronx, in New York." Mayor Koch took him to his room and he showed him the very big picture of Hitler in Shemo, big global of the globe of the whole world, while each country has a number next to that country. Even smallest places like Albania and those small states around the world has number, even 1, even 5, which means Hitler in Shemo was care enough to even get rid of one Jew in one of those states. And then Ed Koch turned to Rabbi Lau and said, "You see, this evil man wants to get rid of all of us worldwide, which means that you and I and everyone of us was survivor of the Shoah." Today is the Holocaust Memorial, and I would like to dedicate this daf, this shiur, not only to 6 million, but particularly to 1.5 million children that died during the Shoah. Those souls, or righteous souls, and we never understand and comprehend the tragedy that happened to our people, but may our study together will be a small token of remembering those people. We begin with the Mishnah in page 31. Today we're going to discuss, first is very important halachot of trumot, which means giving a tithe when our temple was in existence. And again, unfortunately, it's also connected to the Memorial Day today of the Shoah. The rabbis instituted several fasting day every year, public fasting day in commemoration of the temple. And we have this just one day of commemoration. And some of us say Kaddish on the 10th of Tevet, which is a general mourner's Kaddish for all those people who have no idea when their loved one perished. So at the time of the temple, it was a giving a tithe. We used to have a Kohanim, a priest, and Levites, that they received a tithe from the people because they did not make a living otherwise. They are full-time job for service of our people. So there are several questions involved with giving the tithe. There are other questions involved with a situation that people are not familiar, Ama Aretz, people who we're not sure if they are giving tithe. And also we're going to speak about different category with giving food to people who are indigent or regular poor people. Another subject in Mitzvah Shem we're going to discuss today is if we use an emissary or sending the Eruv, which we discuss in this Tractate, by people who are basically incapable, what exactly the halacha involved with those situations. Mishnah, page 31a, Tractate עירובין. מערבין בדמאי ובמעשר ראשון שנתלה תרומתו ובמעשר שני והקדש שנפדו והכהנים בחלה. Demai comes from the Hebrew word da-mai. Da-mai, you can say, I'm sorry, you can say it better in Aramaic word. Da-mai, zema, this is what? Meaning, there are people who are ignorant, who are not educated. The rabbis concerned that taking fruits from those people, they may not separate from their field the tithe, which they supposed to, because there is a category called tevel. Tevel mean tet bet lamed. it means when you're collecting produce from someone and it wasn't tight yet, it's called tevel. After tightening it, it's a different category. Tightening has a different process of doing it. So therefore, the sages put a strong obligation upon us to damai, to go over those untight product and make sure that they are tightening.
So the damai is basically if you go to purchase something and you're not sure that the person you purchased it from has already separated the tithes.
Correct.
So
now,
then that's referred to as damai, then you're responsible at that point to separate the tithes.
Correct. And it's mainly applied to a produce of Eretz Israel. Yes.
So, Rabbi, I know that most are also not produce to tithe off them. Offer. No, we tithe off what we earn.
Yeah,
Is
what
that
we
correct?
earn is derivative from that. But here the Mishnah speaks about, even in nowadays, you see stores in Eretz Israel that have a sign, Hufreshu Trumot Umasrot, that people took tithe and over those produce. So basically, the rabbi,
remember, this is separate from tzedakah. This is the tithes.
Separate.
Yeah, this is the tithes that are given to the Kohanim and the Leviim that he's referring to, not
that's,
charity. Right?
Well, that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. The one that you give to the Kohanim, and that it should be what you earn, like a 10% of what you earn.
yes, but here we discuss a damai. Damai meaning we're not sure if the people who are not educated did
Right.
it.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the issue here is a different type of tithe. One tithe, it's called Ma'aser Rishon Shenitla Trumato. Since any produce that come in Eretz Israel needs to have a process of tightening, and before tightening we say that it's considering tevel, and we cannot eat it regardless if you are Israel or Kohen, you cannot eat it before tightening. So you have to go to a process. First one, it's called Truma Gdola, which is, the Torah said the word Reishit Dgancha, the first of your produce. The first of your produce, you need to give it to the
Kohanim.
Now, because you need to give it to the Kohanim, it turns sometimes, for some reason, that people give to Levi first, and it's called, soon you read, Hikdimo Bashibolim, that gives the Levi first, without giving to the Kohen.
But you take it from the tithe that you've separated for the Kohanim, right? You take 10% of that to give to the Leviim, correct?
Not really correct, and let me explain it clearly. After you take the Truma Gdola, that it's 1 of 50 in a general term, then you go ahead and you give a separate portion, it's called the first tithe,
Right.
Ma'aser Rishon, to the Levi.
So it's 10% of the remaining after you've given the first tithe to the Kohen.
10% of the remaining.
Right.
If a person hikdimo bashibolim, he gave to Levi before he gives to the Kohen. Basic idea is the Truma Gdola, in those years the Gemara said in Sotah that we do not suspected people who are not educated for not giving Truma Gdola to the Kohen. So therefore that's not under the category of da mai. This is what. So soon you see in the Gemara what happened in that circumstance. But again, we have Truma Gdola to the Kohen, 1 of the 50. From the remaining 1/10 we are giving to the Levi, and then from the remaining, after you gave the first tithe, you give it to the second tithe. The second tithe applied to the years, the first year, the second year, the fourth year, and the fourth year and the fifth year of the 7 sabbatical circle. First, second, fourth, and fifth
Right.
year.
The 3rd and 6th are exempt from
Yes.
Maaser Sheni.
And then another one, it's called Ma'aser Ani, a special tithe to the
Poor.
indigent, to the poor, and that applied to the 3rd year and the 6th year of the 7 sabbatical year. Now, the second tithe the owner need to take that tie and eat it in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. Now, it carries a special sanctity.
This is which, the Maaser Sheni?
Sheni.
Right.
It carries a special sanctity, and you cannot eat it while, for example, you are not in a state of purity. So, the Maaser Ani, the tithe for the poor, you can eat it anywhere, and it doesn't carry any Kedusha, any sanctity. The first tithe, you're giving to the Levi cannot eat it until he takes from himself a tithe and give it to the Kohen, and that's called Trumat Maaser, and it has the same din as Truma Gdola. And if you remember in the past, we discussed the second tithe when you redeem it, and how you can redeem and how you can use it. Now, for our discussion, if you have produce that it's demai, which means you're not sure, you purchase it from an uneducated person, and you're not sure if he gave tithe or not, still you can use it for Eruv. You remember we said when you establish an Eruv, from the place you're staying to 2,000 amot, you need to put in that spot a food for 2 meals.
Mm-hmm.
A food for that 2 meals, we said, can use food, so far we understand, that can be eaten by others. As an example, you remember what we discussed yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
We said the Nazirite, who are forbidden to drink wine,
can use wine.
Can use wine because other people can use that wine. So we said the same apply here, that if you have a produce that da mai, you're not sure if was giving tithe to the Kohen, yet you can go ahead and use that for Eruv. To be even better, to say you're not sure about the food that was given to the Levi, because that will be even better, because Truma Gdola, as we said, we're not suspecting people. So we'll go by the Levi, that will be even better. And also, ubema'aser rishon shenitla trumato, even the first tithe, that you take part of that, and a Levi take part of that, you give it part to the Levi take part and give it as a tithe, so you can go ahead and eat it. So you ask, what's the big deal over that? The Gemara explained to us. Ubema'aser sheni vehegde shenivdu. You remember we said in the second tithe, it's applied to second year. Remember the first, second, fourth, and the fifth year. So the Torah said, Ki yirchak mimcha haderech. What happened is, you basically redeem that part, but you cannot eat it outside of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, right? So if it's hard for a person to bring it to Jerusalem, or if it turns that tithe become impure, like ritually impure, you can go ahead and redeem it and take that money and bring the money to Jerusalem and purchase over there food in order to eat there. That tithe, after redeeming it, it becomes chulin, which means doesn't carry the sanctity of the tithe, and you can go and eat it anywhere. So
Maaser Ani is the same percentage as Maaser Sheni, just in those different years.
The third year and the sixth year.
The third year and the sixth year, and that doesn't carry the Kedusha.
No, you can eat it anywhere.
Right.
So here the Mishnah said, we're talking about second tithe that redeemed with money.
Right.
And now you can eat it anywhere. So since you eat it anywhere, now you can go ahead and use it for the Eruv. And we said, ve'akohanim bechala, Kohen received a chala, and he can go ahead and use it for that chala for the purpose of Eruvei Tchumin. So you take a dough, and we put a part and we give it to the Kohen, right? Hafrashat challah to this very day, the rabbis tells us that's very important to do. Okay, so it's a mitzvah to tell your wives to do it, especially before Shabbat. They're preparing the challah. So they're taking this part and they give it to the Kohen, and they have the same category as donation, a contribution, truma, that anyone else are forbidden to eat it, asura lezarim, any others not allow, and allow only by the Kohen. Now, since the Kohen is the recipient of that challah, he can go ahead and use it for Eiruvei Tchumin. He can go and establish an Eruv with that challah. So doesn't mean that only the Kohen use it for the challah. Israel can use it, if you remember we said it, if there's a potential for someone else like the Kohen,
right,
to use that for Eruv. But it means that the reason the Rosh said, the reason that the Mishnah mentioned the Kohanim, it's because the reality is that they are most of the people who receive it and have it.
Right.
But in general, Israel can take it and use it for Eruv as long as there is a Kohen that can eat it. Aval lo betevel, but they're not allowed to use tevel. You remember what is tevel? What is tevel? Is a produce that not
There's
yet
not been
tied
yet.
Tied.
Some tied produce.
So you cannot use it. ולא במעשה ראשון שלא נתלה תרומתו.
Okay.
And not apply to the first tithe that the Levi
Has not separated.
תרומה גדולה, ולא במעשר שני והקדש שלא נפדו, and it's not applied to the second tithe or consecrated articles that have not been yet redeemed, which means that it's a consecrated, it's every place, and a second tithe can be outside of Yerushalayim. So as long as he's not redeemed them, even he can do it soon, but since they are not redeemed yet, they are forbidden to use it, to eat it, and therefore if it's forbidden to eat it, Rashi and Tosfot tells us in page 30b that you cannot use it for the purpose of Eruv. So now we go to the Gemara, and we're going to explain each part of the Mishnah. The first part we said that we can use demai. Da-mai. This is what? We're not sure if the Ama'aretz, if the uneducated, tithed. So they ask a question, ha-lo chazele. Ha-lo chazele, meaning the person, it's unfit for him. What does that mean? The rabbis put a decree that we are not allowed to eat demai.
Without first separating.
Yes. If you remember in page 26b, Sumchus tells us that the Eruv needs to be eaten by the owner of the Eruv. So the question is, since it is under category of demai, so the owner of the Eruv, how he is able to eat it? In other words, by the sages that disagree with Sumchus in 26b, and they say that the regular Israel can use a truma, even he cannot eat it, but the Kohen can eat it, it's fine. So that's apply also to the Mai, and it's not an issue. Why? Because for example, if it's rich, he can use it for the indigent, and as we said that any food, you see here the Tosfot elaborate on that, but he said any food that is fitting for consumption, even for the sum of the people, Tosfot tells us, everyone can use it as a Eruv. Meaning, you as the owner is not necessarily to be the one who consume it. Now, that's the avenue of the Tosfot. I must say that the several others like Rashba and Ritva and others say that the question is not only by the Sumchus in 26b, it's also according to Rabbanan. And the general question according to those opinions is it's not fitting for consumption, is under the category of Demai. This is what? And now we go to the answer, it's called Migo. Migo, it's very important thing. Since he wants, it's very important Migo that said Migo de ibai mafkar leulenichsei vehave ani hashtaname chazile. Meaning, there is a concept we discussed several times that the owner can declare ownerless and then it changes status. If you remember when we talk, for example, in Eiruvei Chatzerot, and one of the owner of that development did not forget to partake of that, right. He basically, as participant, he can declare ownerless, and in that sense, he himself cannot do much, but he can partake of all the development. So, in that sense, we have here the same idea. A person can declare ownerless, and now we're under the category, I'm speaking theoretically yet, ownerless, so he's now poor. So if it's poor, it's we explained that demai, it's fitting for poor people, which means poor people allow by halacha to go ahead and eat even product that is demai. So now, if he is a poor, so he can go ahead and use that produce for Eruv, and therefore he can go ahead and use it. I give you an example. Remember we said that Sumchus tells us that the Nazirite can use a wine for Eruv. Even during the time of his Nazirite, he cannot drink wine.
But others can.
Others can. But further, another opinion. The idea that he can go ahead and go before these committees of rabbis and they annul his vow, the moment they annul his vow, he can go ahead and be free from his Nazirite and can drink the wine. So here, the owner can declare ownerless over that property, and now he'll go ahead and, as an indigent person, he can go ahead and eat demai, and because it's befitting to him. Ditnan, the Mishnah tells us in Tractate Demai, chapter 3, the first Mishnah, Ma'achilin et ha'aniyim demai. You allow and feed people who are indigent a food that it's a question if it was tightened or not.
Yes, Rabbi. If you put in a place in a area and you put food
for 2 meals.
For 2 meals, you could eat from that food, right? And anyone who is poor, or
we explain. You're not here yesterday, but we explained that in Eruv, basically, as long as it can be fitting for anyone, not necessarily you as the owner, but anyone else, it's fine. As long as you have 2 meals that can someone eat it, that's sufficient.
So those 2 meals divided in where you're starting the Eruv and where you're taking it to, the distance, right? Or the whole meal have to be
2 meals
in the same spot,
where you're establishing the Eruv.
and then 2 in the other place where you're taking
Not
it
another
to.
2,
No.
just 2.
Just the 2 on the where you're establishing the Eruv. The
Okay.
one place where the 2,000 amot from
From where you Makom Shvita, when you're staying,
where you start,
when you started.
Okay.
Now the question is, so what ultimately happens to that food? Like, for example, if a Nazarite were to leave enough wine for 2 meals at for an Eruv, and obviously he stops at that Eruv on his travels, but he's not going to drink the wine because he's a Nazarite. So what happens ultimately with that wine? Can anyone else come and drink the wine, or?
Yes.
So
but furthermore, remember we just said that even Nazirite himself, by halacha, he could potentially.
Right, I understand. Yeah, but I'm talking in a practical manner. If say someone so Nazarite, he doesn't take, he doesn't annul himself of the vows on Shabbat.
As long as the food is good for consumption.
I understand, but what happens to that food? Anyone who comes up can drink that wine, or?
Basically, the point is, as long as it's established, and the other partner, let's say your friend wants to be part of that. As we explained, let's say you're planning to go to a mourner's house, to another mitzvah, or to the Sheva Brachot, or whatever it is, and you take another friend, and he is not Nazirite, in that sense, he can eat that food.
I understand, but if there's no one, you're traveling alone, you're going there, then you just leave it, and anyone who comes by at some point can... Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. So essentially, to establish an Eruv, there's no requirement to actually eat the food.
It is,
that you
and
leave
it's not.
Okay.
It has to be befitting.
It has to be
befitting for
something that you can eat, but there's no requirement to actually physically eat it.
It's preferable.
So the ideal thing is to stop, eat something there, and then move on. But it's not. But it's not required.
It by force of circumstance, it can be used other than yourself.
Gotcha.
So it should be like wine and bread.
Not necessarily wine and bread.
You can't do just wine alone.
We said day before yesterday in a Persian example. Remember?
Yep.
That can be
they eat meat and without bread.
Meat, can be other things.
It can be
talk about radish and all kind of things.
Any food that you would normally use for a meal, but you have to have enough of that particular food that you would eat normally with 2 meals. So if you have, for example, just bread, enough bread that you would normally eat for 2 meals, or if you just use meat, enough meat that you would normally eat.
As long as it's under the category of 2 meals.
Okay.
Right.
2 meals. 2 meals for average person. Okay. 31b. Ve'et achsanya demai. Rashi tells us, חיילות מלכי ישראל, שמטילין אותן על בני העיר לזונן, והבלו כעניים שהרי אינן בבתיהם. Rashi said that that's applied to the soldiers in those years that they have a kingdom and they have soldiers, and it's an obligation of people in the city to feeding them. So since they do not have food, they go and fight for the nation, you allowed to go ahead and feed them with demai, because in that sense they are considering an indigent, because they don't have anything. So you can go and use it for a food that is questioned if it was tightened or not.
Tight
or not. Okay. So now, that's according to the Rashi. Tosfot tells us that it's he brought the Yerushalmi and he said that it's applied to a non-Jewish soldiers, because the idea of something that it's totally tevel, that it's definite, untied,
yeah.
even a non-Jew not allowed to use it.
Right.
So, but anyway, back to here. So Amar Rav Huna. So what we understand that the sages, when it's come to poor, they are much lenient. אמר רב הונא תנא בית שמאי אומרים אין מאכילין את העניים דמאי, ובית הלל אומרים מאכילין את העניים דמאי. We learn in the Mishnah that we understand that we follow Beit Hillel, that people who are poor and they need food to eat, so you even give them food that is a question if it was tight
or not.
The continuation of the Mishnah, again we dig in the Mishnah to understand, and we said במעשה ראשון שנתלה תרומתו, you're allowed to go ahead and do an Iruv in the first tithe that was giving as a truma. So he's saying pshita, for sure you can use it for Eruv. What's the chidush? What they try to tell us? לא צריכה שהקדימו בשיבולים. That's what we said in the Mishnah. You remember what we said? That if the owner starts in a different line, instead of begins with Truma Gdola, what did he do? He took the first tithe and he gave it to the Levi,
Oh,
to Levi,
Maaser Rishon, to the Levi.
before he gave Truma Gdola. And he did it in a shibolim, in a stock. So the chiyuv of dagan in Truma Gdola, it's basically before it's called, before the keri itmareach, before that you have to do it first. But now it's considering tevel for Truma Gdola, and Levi, he took his tithe after miruach hakeri, before it's completed. In other words, the obligation of giving tithe apply only when it's completed. Imagine you have the field, you have a very large stock, and you divide it. But before you completed all of that, it's called miruach hakeri, to complete all the process. You take this pile, large pile, it's called keri, all the small stocks there, and you divided it. So if you didn't complete it, you're not yet under the final obligation of doing it. Now, if someone already took part from that keri while it wasn't complete, the process was not completed, so he said, in that situation, we have a question, what status that part's taking? Let's clear it again. You have a field, you take in a field apart, and you make a pile of tvuah, part of the grain, the seeds. Then you take that part and you divide it, and this designated to give it as a truma gdola to the kohen, etc. Mm-hmm. Now, if the Levi, for example, went there and pick something that's supposed to be his part, but it was not fully designated and divided yet, so basically it is, but it's not his yet. Okay?
Okay.
So, just give you for the sake of understanding, you know, the kids that waiting for before the kiddush to get their candies. Mm-hmm. So some kids come up to the bima and they see the piles of all these goodie bags, and they know, each of them know that they're about to get the goodie bag, right? But you have some little kids that guess what they do? They don't have the patience. They already grab the goodie bag and open and want to eat something. Okay, it's there, but it's not there yet.
Right.
Okay. So they said, "Ukde Rabbi Abau." So, ולא נתלה מן תרומה גדולה. I didn't put the תרומה גדולה. כי רבי אבאו אמר יש לקיש. דאמר רבי אבאו אמר יש לקיש. מעשה ראשון שהקדימו בשיבולין פטור מתרומה גדולה. Which means, since there is a part, you remember we talked about the 1/10 that was given to the Levi, and that was a designated for the Levi. Regardless to what happened with the Truma Gdola portion, it's his. It's even he did it hikdimo, he did it before the process wasn't made in the proper procedure. Still, it's a free from the Truma Gdola, from that part. Why? Shene'emar, they said about the first tithe in Bamidbar, in the book of Number, chapter 18, sentence 26. והרמותה ממנו תרומת השם מעשר מן המעשר, and you shall set apart from it gift for Hashem, for the Lord, even a 10th part of the tithe. So what we understand from that? מעשר מן המעשר אמרתי לך, ולא תרומה גדולה ותרומת מעשר מן המעשר. It means that a 10th part of the tithe, which is the truma of the tithe, I told you, which is the Levite, to separate. And I did not tell you to separate truma gdola and the truma of the tithe. Which means that's in a sense, is a consequence of the consequence. It's not yet the obligation. So therefore, you can go ahead and use it for the Eruv.
So the Trumat Maaser, is it the Levi's responsibility to separate it, or the person
Just
who's
said
giving
in
it
the
to the
Mishnah.
Levi? So
No.
the person doesn't have to, so they expect that
The minute you
Levi
give it to
will
the
do it.
Levi, it's his.
Right, but I mean the requirement though to separate the 10% for Truma to the for the Kohen.
Right.
From that's the Levi's responsibility to separate it, not the person who gave it
No,
to the Levi.
the Levi himself.
Right.
He gives part of his to the Kohen. אמר לרב פאפא לאביי, איהכי אפילו הקדימו בקרי נמי. So he said, even if you tell me that, even if the Levi preceded the Kohen and he saw it in a pile, so what did he do? The Levi it's moved from the stock and he placed it in a pile, in a separate pile. So the Levi should still not have the separate Truma Gdolah. So why Reish Lakish said that if is Higdimo Bashibolim, if he did it first, he is exempt. Amar Lei, Abaye said to Rav Papa, Alecha Amar Kra, for this, for what you saying, the Torah said, Book of Numbers, chapter 18, sentence 29, Mikol Ma'asroteichem, Tarimu et kol Trumat Hashem, which is, from all that is given to you, you shall set apart that which it's in a sense God's truma. So why you use this inclusive words? He said from all, that it means that truma gdola must be separated even from the first tithe, in the case that the Levi precedes the Kohen after the grain has been collected in the pile. So now we ask, Umara ita, because you use the word kol. So it's good to see the Rashi here. I'm running out of time, but okay, Umara ita. So how do you tell, from what you see, that way to learn from this pasuk? How do you derive it? Hi, we explain it because you basically can learn it the opposite way. That if ikdimo bashibolim, if he did it first, he is chayav, and if it's carry, it's exempt. So they said hi idgan, hi lo idgan. He said this produce which has been threshed and placed into piles is completely proceed and it's become grain. Reshit gancha titen lo, it's become grain. The high and the other produce, it's not become a grain because it wasn't yet threshed and placed into pile. So therefore, when you take the first tithe, that tithe is have the obligation to give again Truma Gdolah. Even later, it will thresh and pile. And then the Mishnah said, "Umemaaser sheni vehekdesh shenivdu," with a second tithe and consecrated food that have been redeemed. So they said pshita. That's obvious that this food may be used to establish an eruv. So why the Mishnah needs to tell us that you can make an eruv with that one? Lo tzricha lan shenatan et hakeren velo natan et hachomesh. That he paid the principal but not the additional fifth of the value. And we explained it earlier. Because the one who redeemed his tithe, or one who consecrated whatever he consecrated, he need to add 1/5. So he said, "V'kamashmalan," it's come to teach us, the ein hachomesh, that bediavad, by force of circumstance, that first me'akev. It's the idea that if a failure to pay the additional fifth does not invalidate the redemption. Then we learn to the Mishnah, avalo tevel. You cannot use tevel. We explained what is tevel before the proceeding. so you cannot use tevel for Eruv. So now we ask, what's the chidush? Again, pshita, it's obvious. Why the Mishnah tells us, lo tzricha betevel tavul miderabanan. That we got the tevel that considered tevel by rabbinic decree, which means not something that is a biblical precept. Ukegon shezra'o be'atzitz she'eno nakuv. If, for example, if one planted seed and in the container that has no
drain holes,
so in that sense, by the Torah is exempt from giving tithe. Why? Because if you remember, when we talk about tithe, we explain that it has to be gidulei karka,
from the
that's
earth,
something that attached to the earth, and something that was in atzit she'eno nakuv, something that doesn't have a draining hole. It's not from the ground in the sense, so it's not biblical. It's a Mishnah in Demai that tell us in chapter 5 that needs to do it. And the Rashash explains that even by the Torah, you can go ahead and eat it, but because the rabbi said that it's not fitting for food, it's not considering a food because it's a rabbinic requirement. ולא במעשה ראשון שלא נתלה תרומתו, and we said that also Menai established an Eruv with the first tithe whose truma was not being taken. So we said pshita, that's again obvious. לא צריכה שהקדימו בקרי, that we speak about neither that the Levite preceded the priest and took the tithe from the pile. We just explained it. ונתלה ממנו תרומת מעשר, so he already gave the truma of the tithe, but ולא נתלה ממנו תרומה גדולה. And we explain, if you remember, that that's not a precondition. מה הוא דתימה כדאמר לרב פאפא לאביי? We may think the way that Rav Papa tell to Abaye that he needs to bring tithe from the tithe in order to exempt the first tithe from Truma Gdola. Kamash melan kedeshan elei. So this teaches us that the way that we responded to Rav Papa, if the Levi takes grain after he had been gathered the pile, he must separate Truma Gdola until he does so, the produce may not be eaten. And then we said in the Mishnah, that's the last part, ולא במעשר שני והקדש שלא נפדו. And not in a second tithe or consecrated item that was not redeemed yet. Again, pshita, it's obvious. לא צריכה שבדען ולא בדען כהלכתן, that he redeemed but not properly. What does that mean? Maaser, here's the give example. The second tithe, שבדעו על גב הסימון. You take a coin that doesn't have any image.
Invented, yeah.
Invented. ורחמנה אמר, the Torah tells us in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 14, sentence 25, וצרת הכסף, that you collect the money that has to have a form, צורה. בכסף שיש עליו צורה. In the money that you have some type of engravement upon it. And hekdesh, consecrated, shechilelo al gav karta, if it's a consecrated property that referred to where one redeemed by exchanging it in the land instead of money. Why? The Rachmana Amar, the Torah said in Leviticus 27:19, venatan hakesef vekamlo. He will give the money and it should become his. So since the Torah speaks about what? Giving money, it may infer that consecrated property cannot be redeemed by giving the Beit HaMikdash, the temple treasury, land of equivalent value. Now we're going to the Mishnah. And Mishnah said, Hasholeach Eiruvo Biyad Cheresh Shote Vekatan. So we explained earlier, when we established the Eruvei Tchumim, you take the place that you konesh vita, that you dwell, and in that place you count 2,000 cubits, and if you state that you're planning to stay in certain domain, from that domain we count the 2,000. So, excuse me, to put the 2,000 amah by the owner of the Eruv doesn't need to be himself. He can send an emissary to do it on his behalf. So because of that we ask, if one sent an Eruv in the hand of deaf mute, in the person who is not mentally capable, or by the hand of a minor, or biyad mi she'eino modeh be'eruv, if someone does not accept the principle of the Eruv. So people that Tosfot explained that not trustworthy, you cannot depend on them. So they said eino Eruv. So they said it's not considering an Eruv. And Vilna Gaon explained in Or HaChaim Shin Pei Bet 382, and you see it unfortunately even nowadays that people not really trust or believe in the Eruv. So those people, we are suspected that they not be a trustworthy emissary, and therefore it's an issue to give them, even they are not under the category of Cheresh or Teve Katan.
So if someone takes like a stricter view on Eirovin and like they don't accept essentially that, is that what you're talking about?
No.
Are you talking about someone who doesn't know?
Talk about someone who denigrate or disbelieve the value of making an Eruv. So in that sense, that person is under the same category as a deaf mute, a person who's incapable or minor.
When you place in a Eruv, you can do it on any day, or it have to be a specific and Shabbat?
It's advisable and preferable to do it before Shabbat.
Before Shabbat, okay.
Shabbat, yeah.
Because remember, the food has to be ready for eating.
Yeah, but you got to walk it, or you could drive it.
There's
It's before
you
Shabbat.
You can drive before Shabbat. I mean,
Yeah,
you can. Personally, how you get there is up
Makes
to you.
no
I think you
difference.
even learn later on that you can even, if you can, that a bird can even deposit a.
Yeah, well, we'll go there. But the point is, it
Yep.
has to be in that designated place. ואם אמר לאחר לקבלו ממנו, הרי זה עירוב. However, if one told another person to receive it from him at a specific location and he set it down in that spot, it's a valid Eruv. So you see that the critical point in establishment of Eruv, that it must be deposited in the proper location by a competent person, but it is immaterial how the Eruv arrives there, as long as the person is capable and as long as that location. So the Gemara asks, "Vekatan lo, why a minor cannot do that for you?" Ve'amar Ravuna, katan gove et ha'eruv. When you have a iruvei chatzeirot, when you have a sharing the courtyard between the people in that development, so a minor can collect the food. So they said, "Lo kashya kan be'iruvei tchumin, kan be'iruvei chatzerot." The one we talk about the eruv of Shabbat borders, and the other ones talk about the eruv of the courtyard. So all the people in that development, they want to put in one location all the food. So by putting the food, it become one domain. Versus when you do it in a border is a different story, because kniyat shvita, to make it as a dwelling place, has to be by someone who's past the age of bar mitzvah. Or beyad mi she'eino modeh ba'eruv, at the hand of someone who does not accept the principle of Eruv. Example, Amar Rav Chizda Kutai, the Samaritans, because they don't accept the sages' principle of Eruv, so you cannot trust them to make the Eruv for you. Ve'im Amar le'acher, if the owner of the Eruv asks someone to be his emissary, lekablo emenu, to be the recipient, harei ze Eruv, it become acceptable Eruv. Veleichush dilma lo mamtelei. So maybe you should be concerned that perhaps the person will not bring the Eruv to the other person. So he said, no, be'omed vere'eu. He's standing and watching him. Hachanabi be'omed vere'eu. That he see that someone who's not valid emissary give it to a valid person, but he is watching that. Nowadays you see it's much easier to understand. In ancient time it may be hard, but nowadays you see that in the computer era you can watch anything and everything from distance. Let us concentrate, concerned that perhaps the other person will not take the Eruv from for example, the deaf mute or from the person who's not capable or minor. They said, כדאמר רב יחיאל, חזקה שליח עושה שליחותו, הכנה מחזקה שליח עושה שליחותו. Rabbi Yechiel said that when it's come to a legal presumption, that usually the agent fulfill their obligation. So here too, you have the assumption that the person that is an agent appointed to accept the Eruv fulfill his agency. Veheicha itmar the Rav Chizda Rav Yechiel. Where do we find this statement from these two stages? Aha itmar the Tanya. We learn in a Braita. Netano lefil volicho lekof volicho. It's just use the language of exaggeration to understand. If someone, in Thailand, for example, they have a trained elephant. So imagine that you take a trained elephant and they brought it to a place where he wanted the Eruv to deposit, or he gave it to a monkey, trained monkey, and he brought it to a proper location. So he said, Ein ze Eruv. So it's not a valid Eruv. ואם אמר לאחר לקבלו ממנו, הרי זה עירוב. But if you have another person, capable, valid person, to accept it there, so it's considering an Eruv. Even they purposely use exaggerated language just to comprehend the concept. ודילמה לא ממתילי, but perhaps the animal will not bring the Eruv to the person appointed to receive it. אמר רב חיסדא בעומד ורואה, again, he is watching that. ודילמה לא מקבל למיני, but maybe the other person who appointed will not accept the Eruv from the elephant or from the monkey. אמר רב יחיל חזקה שליח עושה שליחותו. We said the same thing, that when it's come to the legal presumptuous, we have the legal presumption that an agent fulfill his mission. So here the same thing. אמר רב נחמן, בשל תורה אין חזקה שליח עושה שליחותו. Rav Nachman said, when it's come to the Torah precept, we cannot depend on this presumption. So Rashi here used the word klomar, and Rashi said, אין חזקה, כלומר לא סמכינן על חזקה עד דחזינן ועבד. And here we have in my book, ביורע כלומר בראשי על הש"ס, I try to explain what Rashi meant, and he said that this chazakah, it's not a biblical precept, it's only rabbinic that we depend upon. But again, we're running out of time. You're welcome to read it in my book. So he said, since we not rely on the presumption that the agent fulfill his agency, but also only we must actually see that he perform his agency. We'll go now to the next page. Few lines from 32a. Beshel sofrim, when it's come to rabbinic, chazaka shaliach oseh shlichuto, that we depend, that we have the presumption that the agency follow his mission. Rav Sheshet amar echad ze ve'echad ze, regardless if it's a rabbinic or biblical, chazaka shaliach oseh shlichuto, that we have the assumption that he does what does his mission. Amar Rav Sheshet mena minala, how do you know it? Vetnan, we learn, משקרא ואומר, הותר חדש מיד, והרחוקים מותרים מחצות היום ואילך, which again we'll discuss Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. Now we're going to a practical halachot. First is the Rambam, Hilchot Eiruvin, chapter 1. מערבין בדמאי, one is permitted to establish Eruv with Demai, and we explain in the Shiur, since it's can be eaten by a poor person, it's fine. We explain also that if the Levi came and took the first tithe before the Kohen received the Truma, while the produce was still on stocks, the produce of the Levi received, it's exempt of the Truma. However, the Tur in Yoredea 331 said that if the produce was already threshed and in a pile, the Levi is obligated to separate Truma as well. We also discuss if one sent an Eruv with a deaf mute or with a person who is not mentally capable or a minor, anyone who denies the principle of Eruv, or a non-Jew, so the Rabbi Yonah said that the Eruv is not valid, and that basically the Shulchan Aruch or Achaim 409. However, when it's come to Eruvei Chatzerot, the Shulchan Aruch or Achaim 366 says that minor servants or individuals who are not legally competent may collect food for an Eruv Chatzerot and establish the Eruv, and thereby allowing people to carry in the courtyard. That's the Tur. We also said that if one sent his Eruv with a person who unfit for the task, or even placed it, we explained an extreme example, elephant, monkey, etc., and he sees the Eruv arrive in its destination, and he had told another person to accept the food from that place down as an Eruv, the Eruv is valid. There is a presumption that an agent fulfill his mission. That Shulchan Aruch Achaim 409.
To